Hey guys, welcome back to Men Plus 40. Today I have a special guest, Izabela Hamilton. Izabela is a good friend of mine. We worked on a number of projects over the years. Today we're going to be talking about male and female dynamics. Now I know there's a lot of podcasts that kind of do this stuff, but generally they are a certain leaning to one side. So it might be a guy's podcast where they bring on girls from OnlyFans and stuff like that. But I don't believe it gives a true representation and the dynamics between the two. Yes, there's male nature, there's female nature, etc., but a lot of the nuances are lost there. So I'm going to be doing a series. Izabela is a good friend. I'm going to kick off the series with Izabela, and in the future, again, I'll be bringing on other women, from different walks of life and get their opinion on things to improve some of the dynamics out there, because the dating market and marriage market is a shit show. And without proper communication and perspectives on both parts, it's always going to be a bit of a struggle. Obviously, it goes much deeper than that. But today, welcome to the show, Izabela Hamilton. How are you doing?
Thank you, Danny. This is very exciting for me because I've never done this kind of interview before. And I love that you are bringing this real perspective and real answers and real life situations to your show, because you're right. Some of the content that's already out there, it's almost I don't want to say rigged, but it goes in a certain way that people are manipulating it, right? So getting real
Mm.
feedback from real people, I think that's always the way to go. So I'm excited for this episode and for all the ones that are to come.
First things first, what does it mean when a woman says, I do not settle?
I think, for a lot of women that have, especially the ones that have been working on themselves a lot. And when I say this, I
Mm.
mean, besides just the physical body, which everybody should be doing, but as you evolve and as you grow older and you gain more perspective and experience, then you do have a certain respect for yourself where you want your
Mm.
partner to at least match, right? And I think we
Yeah.
all want to start at that neutral phase where
Mhm.
we have this almost like beautiful start, and then of course if there's a higher level, women will always go for that higher level social economical state
Yeah.
stature and so forth. But I think it starts from that, like where women find themselves that they're at, and they want
Mm.
their partner to at least start at that. I think that's what settling means.
Yeah. So effectively what you're talking about in terms of Dr. David Buss and evolutional psychology, etc., what you're talking about is hypergamy, where it is supposed that women will date across and up the competence hierarchy. So whether that's in terms of social economical status, especially on the finances side, I think the data suggests it's, at least 30% above the baseline earnings of yourself or of the other partner. And on the flip side of that, for gentlemen, if the lady does settle, you're never going to get the best from that lady.
Mm.
So you're better off not being with that lady if she is indeed settling. I think that but on both sides, there's an optimization going on to get the best mate that they can find, really.
That's awesome. I never knew about the the research, and you said
Mm.
30%. That was interesting and new too.
Well, 30% above baseline. So if
Right.
someone earns 100 grand a year, it'd be 130 they'd like their partner to make. But then when you've got to look at the reasoning behind it, they say that it depends on the age group. If the lady is of an age, a biological age where it's safe to have children, she hasn't had children yet, and she wants to take some time off work, she doesn't want to shift off that lifestyle. She wants to know that the support's there and there's additional income there, as an example, because what? It's practical. But unfortunately, that's just the way of the world. Do you see what I mean? But it doesn't mean that you can't find a really good partner.
Yeah, and you mentioned one thing, Danny, that I think we should talk about it. You said that
Hmm.
men should not settle with that lady anyway, and I'm wondering, why do you think that is?
Because if that lady doesn't have respect for you in that level and she's not attracted to you and you're in a relationship, you're never going to get the best out of her. So effectively, it's probably best not to get into a relationship where one or both partners are settling, because it's not going to leave for a good standing. Do you see what I mean? Moving forward. So that there is an upside of that, is that, look, as guys, what we want is we want the right woman by our side, right? People have different tastes, flavors, etc., etc. But one of the things we do want is to know that she's ride or die with us. So when we go out to battle, and we go out to work and everything else and come back home, and you know she's got your back in that sense. Now, as a guy, you're independent as well, because everyone's individuated. But if you're in a relationship with someone, it is about trust, loyalty, and that you would like your woman to look up to you and respect you. And respect obviously goes both ways.
I love that answer. That's awesome.
So what is your opinion from your point of view? Because there's so many definitions of it.
Course.
What do you see as a masculine man? What makes a masculine man?
I think a masculine man can be defined by his presence, mostly, I think, at the first look. And this, like you said, it can mean so many things, but, a confident man that is not arrogant, because that is a very fine line, but that's super confident, that can stand in his own power, be assertive but without being rude, being empathic and being respectful. I think those are some really amazing qualities, because a lot of people think masculine, you just have to like be super buff and be grouchy and be this. I don't think that is, what women are looking for or think about when they say masculine. I think it's more of like the protective feeling of, does this man look like he can provide me the safety that I cannot, right? Because as a female, we are, first of all, physically not as powerful as men. So I think biologically in our DNA, it's yearning for that first and foremost. Like, can he protect me? Can I feel safe? Can I let my hair down around this person? And I think that is the embodiment of masculinity.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about, it's a spectrum, right? So you've got hyper masculinity, you've got all the guys locked up in prison. And to be honest with you, when people talk about alphas and stuff like that, I think when people start calling themselves alpha, I think that's not for you to discuss, because I think of the dynamics of the hierarchy. So that guy may be alpha in his group, but in the big wide world, like, give an example. At the weekend, I was with my coach and I'd done some boxing shows. If you want to see masculine alpha men, you want to go in the changing room in the blue collar, like boxing. It's still like professional, but they're prize fighters. And you'll see 15, 20 guys getting ready on the pads. They're wrapping their hands and everything else. Fearless, right? And then on the flip side, you've got one of the guys in the corner phoning and speaking to his daughter before he goes out and does a 3-rounder. There's different levels to these kind of things. Mm-hmm. When a woman says she wants a connection, what does that mean to you?
Connection. Such a juicy word. I think connecting is just beautiful to have between, any kind of relationship that you have, but specifically when it's your partner, is taking it beyond another level, right? Connecting on a spiritual level, connecting on a physical level, connecting on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. And, of course, the most beautiful outcome, it would be if you could have a partner that would fill all these parts that you want to be connected with. But I think at first, when we meet somebody, is that physical connection that we're lusting over, right? It's like, he's attractive, she's attractive, okay, you have that. And then maybe you try to cling on to other planes, right? Maybe it is spiritual, or maybe it's work related, it's all intellectual. And I think we're all looking for a little bit of connection everywhere we look. Like, we're friends for many years, we have this a connection that it cannot be broken, right? And I think that's what we're all looking for, whether it's a partner that's going to be your spouse for the rest of your life, or just a friend or a best friend. And that's what connection is all about.
Yeah, I mean, there's different variants to it, I think. And I think from a guy's perspective, sometimes when they hear the word connection, they're thinking, being a bit soppy, being weak and stuff. And
I was going to say, they run away.
Yeah, so that's why I think there's got to be a balance in there somewhere. Do you see what I mean? You're retaining who you are, you're individuated. But I think when it comes to stuff like that, I think some people are not clear on it, you know, because I think what happens is men and women communicate completely different, right? We've got different brains, we're biologically different and everything else. But if you want a long term relationship, you have to find a ways where, all right, I don't understand how you're feeling at the moment, but I respect you and I have empathy and I will try and understand it, especially in marriages. I mean, if you get into things like physical intimacy, now that's really important to a lot of men, but it may not be as important to a woman. So a man has the top 5 list of his most important things. A woman has the top 5 list of his most important things, but them lists could be in different orders. But where the breakdown can come is that the shaming tactics of, you know, physical intimacy and saying, oh, why do you need to big? Well, men have got 17 times the level of testosterone than women. So they may have a higher libido. Some women have like higher libido, of course, as well. So that can cause conflict. Also, what can cause conflict is that if a guy is not paying attention to his partner, he's always on his phone, he's always working, he doesn't give her quality time. And he doesn't understand the importance of that presence, because in his head, he's saying to himself, I've got to get all this done. I've got to get the money in. I've got to provide. I ain't got the bandwidth to do all that stuff. It doesn't mean it's not important. It's just not as high on his list compared to what is high on her list. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something very important, and this is what connection is all about, because we are almost expecting the other person to know what we want, right? And yes, you have certain things in common, which is what attracts you, but then you're right, you fall into that, well, I'm already paying for all the bills and I want to be on my phone for an hour on Instagram. I don't want to give my time to her. But this is when communication comes in, and you look at, okay, these are the 5 things that are important for me as a woman, these are the 5 things that are very important to you as a man. And then once you put them together, you can understand that when you see your partner on the phone, you understand that he's just winding down. But if you don't communicate that, then the female can go into that story mode where it's like, oh, he doesn't love me anymore, because he doesn't spend time with me, where in his head it can be all about, I am providing for her, so that should show her that I love her. And this is where a lot of relationships go wrong, because there's absolutely no communication. It's not that there isn't love and appreciation, but it's almost like, well, he doesn't care about this, so why should I care about this? And then you get into this anger mode, and then you just start losing that connection.
Yeah. And that's it. And the drifting starts, and then the contempt comes in, and then the disrespect starts, and then the comments back and forth, and then the picking back and forth. I've seen it, and I've been through it myself. I've been with my wife 30 years, and we've been through a lot. And so you go through cycles. Do you see what I mean? And as you get older, the things start to shift, and also you change. If I've been with my wife since I was 19. She's 18. I'm coming up to 48. So you can imagine how many adjustments we've made for our life and how things changed. But yeah, we've been through the toxic times, for a better word for it. We've been through better times. We've had to deal with the loss of children, gone broke twice, 2 signatures away from divorce. But there are ways. Do you see what I mean? And I think people give up on marriage pretty quick nowadays,
Yeah, you just gave me goosebumps. That is so beautiful. But you see, Danny, like, you and your wife both like have been different people throughout this lifetime, and you
Yeah.
were able to, maybe you weren't growing at the same time, but you did grow. You kept each other growing, which is why you're still together. And you are really different person, every day as well. But, in those little increments, you don't see them because they're so tiny. But if you look over past 5 years, you're such a different person than even when I met you. And so,
Yeah.
sure, and this is what we do. But for somebody to stand by you, just like she stands by you, you stand by her with all these changes. And then you come together, you're like, we still choose each other. We still choose each
Yeah.
other, even though we are new people, because you're no longer what you were at 18 and 19.
Another question for you that's important, a lot of people talk about, is when a lady says she wishes her man to be more vulnerable, obviously men run at this, how vulnerable and why? Because that's a really tricky word. It's it can be kind of double loaded.
Yeah, of course, because I think men are so programmed when they hear the word vulnerable, they automatically think weak. And,
Yeah.
I think one, maybe we should start using another word for that if it's that triggering for men. But what
Yeah.
women want when they say vulnerable, they really just want to feel like they're listened to, that the partner is open
Mm.
heart, or and also giving them feedback, right? You had a bad day at work, you're upset because your father is sick or whatever. Men just want to hold that in, like, I'm so strong, I'm so strong. But what it shows to the partner, to the female partner, is that he doesn't want to let me in. He does not want to share this very important moment with me, therefore he doesn't love me.
Mm.
Do you see
Yeah.
how women, like, we take everything to a whole nother level, whereas maybe the man just doesn't want to talk about it. But that is again where communication comes in, and being vulnerable is really just like being open hearted and sharing with your partners, like, hey, like, I also have sadness sometimes, and maybe I also
Mm.
go into depression, and maybe I just need a hug. It doesn't mean that is making the man weak. And as I
Yeah.
said, from childhood, men have been programmed to be tough, be tough, be tough, and that's okay. We like tough men. But being vulnerable, it's almost like a special treat for females. Like, you are showing a part of you that I want to nurture and I want to love, and you're showing
Mm.
empathy is so much more than just what men think.
Yeah. I think what it is, I think again, you take people can take it to the extreme. I think when they mean vulnerable, they mean a guy sits in front of his wife and bawls his eyes out like a little baby. She looks at him and goes, "What the fuck's going on with him?" That's the extreme end of vulnerability, is what I think a lot of people think it actually means,
Right.
right? So you've just obviously articulated your perception of it. Obviously, people have different versions of it. And I think what's happened is people, if they've been vulnerable, it could be used against them and stuff like that. That's the concern. So
I see
I
that.
think with the vulnerability thing, I think there's a difference between your children dying or something, bad happens, then you have a job, right? And you hate your job, and you come home every day. You go, "I hate my job. I've had enough." Da 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 da. And your wife says, "What are you going to do about it?" "Oh, I don't know." Da da da. Comes in the next day, moaning, pissing and moaning and crying again. Not crying, but whining. In the end, she's going to get the because she's going to go, "Well, all right, you hate your job. What are you doing about it?" You haven't got a game plan. And I think then that kicks the safety mechanism in. And then that's where respect can start to lose. Because there's a difference for coming home and go, "Right, I've had enough of my job." And you go, "What do you do about it?" "Right, I'm going to write for other jobs, going to do this, going to do this, and I'm going to work my way out of this and have a solution. So I think that's where people get mixed up with vulnerability as well.
Mm.
So what would you say is the top 3 things women, generally speaking, want in a relationship and why they're important?
Very important. I mean, there's quite a list, but I think
Name as many as you want, but I'll give you 3 so you didn't get stuck. But if you want to add more, absolutely.
no, that I think confidence, especially, for me, I think that's very important, because that just says so much, besides just like, oh, I'm standing straight here in front of 100 people. But it's all that training that took to get behind that confidence, right? So I think,
Mm.
somebody that can stand in his own presence and bring everything that he's got, like, this is who I am with my weaknesses and my strengths, and taking pride in that.
Yeah.
Respect, somebody that's respectful not only towards me but everyone around, because it's not all about how you treat me. I would be watching how you treat other people, how you treat those of a lower level. Those are very important. And somebody that can embody, I guess, more traditional roles, such as like the protectiveness and strength, but also more modern terms that we use now, like emotional intelligence, somebody that can be open to change their perspective, just embodying those, the traditional and the modern of, empathic, being a little bit empathic. And we don't have to go to the extreme, like you said, oh my God, crying on the couch in front of their
Mm.
wives, but more like, can I be open with my person?
Yeah.
Can I share the vulnerable moment? So I mean, I could list again a few more, but I think those are so crucial to have.
In your opinion, what can make a man unattractive? i.e. behaviors, clothes, attitude, etc., what would be for, you don't have to just speak on yourself, your friend group as well.
Mm,
What are some key things that can make them, maybe you were attracted or to them, or your friends were,
mhm.
but then they done things where it's like, no,
Yeah.
some people, it's the shoes, or it can be a dodgy looking wallet and little things, but then there's the other stuff as well.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's more, the big stuff, like how empathic are you, how willing are you to see my perspective. um if you're not kind to people, if you're arrogant, and if you're just stuck in your own ways and you don't want to do anything else different than what you have been doing your whole life, somebody that's close-minded, it's unattractive, because everything is a change, is a constant change, nothing stays the same. So for somebody now willing to learn a new skill, or learn to adapt to new environments, and be open to understanding somebody else's perspective, I don't like that. And of course,
Yeah.
beside the physical appearance and how you treat yourself, I think also how you treat your body and how you treat other people around you, those
Mm.
all of those can make you super attractive or unattractive immediately, of course. And as I said, you can see somebody and they look really good, you may feel like, oh my god, he's so attractive, or she's so attractive, but then you
Yeah.
start talking and you're like, oh my god, like I wish this never happened.
They're attractive until they open their mouth. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think those are so
Yeah.
important. And maybe when we were younger and it was more about the physical, then it's different. And we could have this
Mm.
conversation, Danny, every 5-10 years, and I'm sure we
Mm.
would have maybe a completely different perspective. But when we were younger, maybe the physical was more important, or you know the money, or whatever it is. But then as you get older,
Mm.
you start looking for other attributes. And when you start talking to somebody that's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they still have the emotional intelligence of when they were 25 clubbing, that's
Mm.
not cute.
Indeed. So follow up on that question here. Do you think a man should take care of his body, and what does that represent in your opinion?
Oh, that's such a great question. Again, I'm not every woman, but
Mm.
for myself specifically, I work out every day. It's just
Mm.
part of life, just like I brush my teeth, I go to the gym. It's just part of life, and I know you do too. So when I see a man that also takes care of themselves, that tells me again so much more beside just the physical appearance. That means you are
Mm.
consistent. That means you have a goal in mind and you are not giving up, because you
Mm.
keep putting in work every single day, or however, whatever your schedule is. So I think it goes beyond just like, wow, he has a nice physical aspect. That tells me so much. It tells me that he's also
Discipline.
consistent at work. He's
Mm.
also exactly, thank you, discipline. And that's so important to have.
Yeah, I think it's what I know. It seems hard, and I want to say this to the gentleman out there. You don't need an Instagram body, right? You don't. Honestly, you just do not need an Instagram body. There's a difference between being in shape and taking care of your physical well-being. Now, there's the extremes. I haven't got nothing against that. If you're a bodybuilder and you want to blow up to 300 pounds and look, like a monster, do your thing. If you want to be more lean athlete or whatever. So even in terms of attraction levels, that can just adjust just through exercise and eating well can make a big difference. And it does send that signal, that consistency, conscientiousness, disciplined, and it also very interestingly works in business, networking, and other people. Like guys will show you a bit of respect. On the flip side, one warning of getting in shape and taking care of yourself is what I noticed, because my weight's gone up and down all over the years. When I got married, I was 17 and a half stone. That was 23 years ago. So my life's always gone up and down. What you also find is it's okay to lose a bit of weight, but don't go beyond the past of winning. And what I mean by that, if you suddenly, you see posts where they go, oh, congratulations, you lost 3 pounds. But you might want to lose 25, 30 pounds. You lost 3 pounds. But then you lost 10, 15, you get in and you lose all this weight. Then it starts to trigger people. They're like, who the fuck do they think they are? I get more comments now about my body
Mm,
which I don't ask for, than I've ever done when I was overweight.
mm,
And I think for guys as well, especially guys who run businesses, if you look around, because they're so driven by their business,
yeah.
they're not taking care of the health. So there's two things there. Very rarely you see an in shape businessman. They're rare because they're working on their family and their businesses and stuff. But equally, if you really want to benefit your business over the long term and as you get older in your health, by being in shape, that's going to help set you up for when you do slow down, because you will slow down.
Mhm.
And so if you start taking care of your body now, you can have a better second half of life, especially even if you're getting in walking 10, 15,000 steps a day. Sounds like a lot, but studies have shown, like 5,000 and below. I spoke to an NHS doctor, you're dead basically very fast. If you see when people retire and they sit in the chair and then they're all crumpled over, they're often dead in a few years because they've got no purpose or anything going on in their life. They're not exercising. Their bone density gets affected and everything else. So
Yeah,
tell me a bit more about, I know we're on relationships, but you train 5 to 7 days a week. Is that right?
I do. I do. I
Yeah.
do. The only time that I don't is if I'm out of town and I'm flying that day. But it started, I didn't always do 7 days. And I think before I was so obsessed, Danny, with, keeping
Mm.
my body tight and that body image. Oh my God, I have to look
Yeah.
good. That, we would
Yeah.
spill into like, oh my God, I can't eat this and I can't eat that. And then what had happened, then it almost became an obsession around it. So what we focus on, where
Mm.
energy goes, focus goes, everything is about that, right? So everything was about gym and working out, and I can eat this, and then it was too much focus on that. So as soon as I let go of that and I made this as part of life, just like I said,
Mm.
brushing teeth, I'm not worried. My friend was asking me the other
Mm.
day, it's like, oh my God, you just ate like a full spoon of Nutella, which I love, right? And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say. She's like, did you know there's, I don't know how many spoons of sugar, because I didn't even want to recall.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, perhaps. I mean, it makes sense why it's so delicious and sweet. But because I'm not so obsessed about it, you're not gonna see me every day eat Nutella. But if that thought comes and that I want to eat it, I
Mm.
can. So you see how I
Yeah.
made it as part of life and not as
Mm.
part of like an obsession that I have, because I realize that everything that I obsess over, my mind stays stuck on that. And again, it goes with business too, and it goes back to your point of why a lot of these successful men, that maybe they're not in the best shape, is because they have a single focus and one single focus only, right? I don't care about working out, I
Mm.
gotta make money. I don't care about the family right now, they can wait, I gotta make money. So you see how this can spill into everything. And I only know this because I've been through it. I was at
Yeah.
one point obsessed just with this, obsessed just with this. So what I've noticed this past year, where I kind of took a year off of everything and just kind of went through like a spiritual awakening in a way. But I realized that, everything is important and everything is unimportant, is whatever you want to
Mm.
do with it. And then, just like you, I'm like, okay, I'm getting to an age where, my metabolism one is slowing down. But every single day, putting in the time, not only my body agrees with it, but I feel good. I feel better.
Yeah.
My brain is oxygenated, and I don't have to go and run 5 miles. It's sometimes I just go walk on treadmill and I watch a YouTube video, and it doesn't have to be so stressful all the time.
Yeah, I think Instagram's played a role in terms of impossible body standards for people. And I think on the guys' side as well, there's a lot of guys with body dysmorphia. They're seeing Instagram and don't realize, like, if they're a natty, but a lot of the guys on there they'll be on the roids, some are on trend, like the big monsters will be on trend. Obviously, there are some natural, but then once you throw in lighting and then they do a cut, and then obviously they're draining the body weight for the photo shoot and the lighting's done and everything else. They're not walking around like that. But I just think that if you can look half decent in the t-shirt, your V taper in, you've got broad shoulders and back. If you're a slim guy, there's you have to eat your way up or you get on the roids. That's entirely up to you. I'm not going to judge you, but just being in some level of shape and fitted clothes goes a long way, and that is going to be big adjustment for you, and you will see the feedback if you were to do the work. It's shocking what you learn, but you only really understand it if you actually do the work yourself.
Exactly. That's
I'm not saying it's easy.
a good point, Danny, because there's this misconception, and I think it's a misconception where men think
Mm,
all women want is somebody with the six pack. No, I think you're
mm,
right. I think somebody that shows that they take care of themselves, like that they respect themselves. Like if I look
mm,
at your body and you look the way you do, I know you respect yourself, which in turn tells
mm.
me that you're also going to respect me because you have enough
Yeah.
respect for yourself to create that body. So again, for me, I think I go a little bit more into the mindset of all of this. But no, women don't just want six pack. I mean, we'll see it on Instagram and we'll like it, we'll giggle
Mm.
about it, like, oh, that's hot. Yeah, but it's not the ideal. Men physique that most women want. Like, do you take care of yourself? Are you healthy? And therefore, are you happy? Because it all comes down to that. Because if you're happy, then you're really happy.
Yeah, your goal is to get the best body you can for you. And that's the thing. I think once you start trying to optimize, reading biology reports, it's like, okay, I need to do the V taper and stuff. It's nice to go down in the V shape, but it depends on your size. Some people actually look better. Like, I'll give you an example. I know guys who are absolutely ripped, but in a t-shirt, they look tiny. So, yeah, I just think it's if you can find a way of doing this in terms of what benefits you, take your time. Lose a pound a week, half a pound. Do it over time because it stays off, and just make it something that is your health should be a non-negotiable.
Yes.
Okay, what do you think men want in a woman, and you can't use physical intimacy outside of that? That'll be in the list somewhere.
I think men essentially they want to protect. I think it is within men's nature to have somebody that they can protect. And that
Mm,
comes into the question, where do alpha women come in, right? But
mm,
I think essentially men want to have somebody that loves them, that respect them, and that
mm.
they feel a little bit in that more masculine position. I don't actually think men want some, woman that's super masculine. So I think if I were to reduce it to that, it would
Well,
just
there'll be some out there, but the polarities would be that maybe that guy's more feminine and he wants a masculine woman.
yeah,
That's up
right,
to them.
right.
I'm not going to
Yeah,
argue with
that's
it.
true.
But generally speaking, it's what
That,
you're saying. So
that's true.
respect,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is appreciation. Now, there's loads of things,
Yes.
but let me give an example. Respect to most men, can't speak for all. Respect equals desire.
Mm.
Because you could love someone but not really respect them, and if you don't respect them, you're not going to desire them, and that's not going to be conducive for a healthy relationship with both emotional and physical intimacy.
Mm.
And appreciation is funny because there are guys who have never been told thank you, I really appreciate you. They simply haven't heard those words. And I tell you what, there's a lot of guys out there, if someone partner says, now here's going to be the argument. You could say, well, why do I want to say thank you for doing what he's meant to do anyway? Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? He can
Yeah.
have that kind of attitude, right? Which is fair enough. But if a man is being given appreciation, a lot of guys will dine out on that for 2 weeks. And as women, you'll get so much more out of them because
Mm.
they feel appreciated. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying you don't get it,
Right.
but ladies that are listening, depending on your relationship, if contempt's in the relationship, you've been together a long time and you don't see eye to eye, it's going to be very difficult to show appreciation if there are underlying things. But as a little test, go up to your man, he does something, tell him you appreciate it. Watch
Mm.
his face, and then watch how much you get done out of him. That level of appreciation is then going to want him to do more for you because he feels appreciated.
Those are the secret nuggets here on Danny's show. Secret nuggets, ladies. Write this down.
It's not secret, but I can understand why, because I've had a lot of diverse conversations, and it is a common thing. If they've been in a long-term relationship and we're having a chat and said, well, I won't go into private conversations, but basically he's like, when I mention that, quite often it will come up and be like, what? You want me to take good job for doing what he's meant to fucking do in the first place? He's meant to do that. Why should you? Just see what I mean? I've got all this shit to do and da-da-da, and I totally understand it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is someone's got to make the first move if there's, unsettling behavior within inside of the relationship. And I'll tell you now, most men, if you say you appreciate them, they will dine on that for 2 weeks, and you'll get pretty much anything you're asking for with it, with boundaries and within reason. That's where it comes from. It's that kind of them bits of small pieces of communication can make a difference. Now, there's other things that men want, of course, but there are two key things. Whereas I think women want good quality attention, right? And they want to feel loved, and they want to feel respected in their own way
That's
as
a
well.
great point.
What are the key attributes for you to feel safe? So I give an example in my family, and I notice that women have a lot of different ones. Mine is, I need to make sure that my family, including my wife and my daughter, needs to feel safe financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, and there's more. But I find that if you can get a woman to those places and that level of equilibrium, they're very feminine.
Mm, exactly. I mean, I was just going to say that, it doesn't matter how alpha and how business lady and boss
Mm.
babe you are, first of all, those.
Look, you do millions a year, right? You do millions a year. Let's have it right. But I'm sure you don't want to come home and you still be in your masculine mode. You
Right.
want to kick your shoes off and, relax and stuff. And sometimes you don't want to do a load of the other stuff. It'd be nice to someone say, I got you, and take that off your plate. Do you
Exactly.
see what I mean? The ebb and flow.
Yeah, and I think that's those little things that are so important, and of course, the financial safety, comes. It's very
Mm.
important for me specifically, with my background coming from a communist country and having that
Yeah.
scarcity feeling of not having enough. So for me to fulfill that, I had to. Kind of create it for myself, but of course, having it from a partner that you can kind of lay your hair down and know that
Mm.
whether you're closing a deal or not, that you will have food on the table. I think that's so important, because then we as women, we can flourish, right? We can, if we start at that
Mm.
base of like, somebody's got me, right, whether it's financial or I don't have to worry about food, then they can bloom into whatever they want to become. It just happens that for me, business has always been very exciting, learning new things and creating.
Mm.
I'm very creative. For other women can be, I just want to be the best mom. I just want to have, 10 kids. And I know people like that, and that's beautiful, but still they want to lean back on somebody. I know they got,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm taking care of all of this, but they got me. So I think that safety is so crucial. And of course, just like men like it, women like to be appreciated too, because sometimes we don't always look like Instagram models. I don't look like this all the time.
Mm. Mm.
But we have those moments where we want to be nurtured and we want to be loved, and even when we're not at our best.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do you think puts a woman in her masculine energy, and why?
Mm. That's where I think women get tired of like asking, if they have a spouse that's like, oh, I want you to do this, and then they don't. And, that's when the masculinity comes in, thinking that they need to do it. Now, if my partner is not going
Mm.
to do it, I need to step up. And this is where the masculinity comes in. I'm going to fix the sink
Mm.
myself. And I'm also angry while
Mm.
I do it. And then all these masculine traits, because masculinity and femininity, it's all duality within ourselves. It's not just
Mm.
one woman is more masculine, more feminine. We all have it within ourselves. It's just what triggers it.
Yeah.
Certain
Yeah.
situations, just like you said, if you're the alpha man in your gym, but then you go get dropped off in a corner somewhere in Brooklyn at 3 a.m., you're gonna, maybe not be
Mm.
so alpha. So it's all about
Yeah.
the situation. But I think that's what drives. And if the man, it is maybe a little bit too feminine, too on the, crying on the couch all the time,
Mm.
that's where, the female maybe has to feel like she has to take over and she has to be. And then,
Yeah.
maybe it's okay once in a while, but over the long run, if, the dynamic is not appropriate, then that's where, again, it can start going in different directions.
Yeah. Because I think because that's also tied into trust as well. So if someone says, "Oh yeah, I'll do it at 4 o'clock tomorrow or whatever," and then doesn't do it, it's small, but it starts to break away the trust, because it's like a guy's generally known for it. The man is his bond, like it's his word, but then he doesn't keep his word. And if he doesn't keep keeping his word, the trust levels go down. when things like that come off, it's like the scoreboard can go back to zero for some guys, and then they have to build that up again. But I just think that's just the nature of relationships as well. Do you think men are good mind readers?
Oh goodness, no, I don't,
Yeah,
and I don't think
yeah,
men should try to read minds. And I think that's another thing that people talk about. But I think that what they're referring to, Danny, is empathy. Because
mm,
when you're open,
mm,
right? If you're sitting next to somebody and you see their body change and their facial expressions change, then it's almost in a sense like mind reading. But really, it's not. Like you
mm,
can, if you love somebody, you start knowing who they are. You know their body, you know their
yeah,
emotions, and then you can see when there's a change, and that's where emotional
mm,
intelligence comes in. But yeah, I think I mean, I don't think men are supposed to read minds. I think we're supposed
yeah,
to both create a beautiful communication a space and ask each other question, and then you might be surprised in what you find out. You're like, oh my god, I had no
mm,
idea you think this way. How many marriages could have
yeah,
been saved had they been more communicative? Because it's like, oh, I
mm,
want my spouse to do this or my partner to do this, and they're not doing it. Well, have you ever communicated? Well, no, he should just know.
yeah.
And it goes both
That's it.
men and women.
Yeah, that's that. I think that's that scenario where the indirect communication, right? So some people are direct, some are indirect. So the example would be something like ladies in the car, guys in the car, they're driving along. She turns around and says, "Oh, do you feel that? I feel a bit cold." And he's like, "No." What it actually translated to, turn the fucking heating on, please, because I'm freezing. But instead of saying it, and sometimes
Yeah.
what you have to do, you have to get a little treasure map out for men, and then you have to draw it on them. And because men are goal orientated, right? So what happens is, let's say you need to get some stuff done, right? How do you communicate your needs in a relationship?
I mean, I wasn't always, this good at communication, and everything happens through trial and error, and then hopefully, you get to listen to a podcast like this where you get to learn a few things. But what
Mm,
I'm learning is, to communicate better, and even now, and it's in process, because for somebody like
mm,
me, I like to be in control. I like to know what's happening, where I'm going, and I know if
mm,
I do it myself, it's gonna be done. So it's almost
mm,
as letting go of a little bit of that control, where yeah, things may not go the way you want them, but somebody put in the
mm,
effort. So
mm,
it's really all about communication. And hey, I would really appreciate if you did this for me, or it would be really nice if this happened. But of course, now we're speaking, we're both calm and chill, but those
mm.
maybe they don't always come out this nice and
That way.
that way. So
Yeah.
it's just a learning process, and you keep practicing. And we almost expect to go into a relationship knowing everything. Oh, I he should know what I want. She should know what I want. Like, based on what? Based on who?
Yeah.
Based on what? So when you meet somebody, you're with somebody, you just have to be open to learning about who they are,
Mm,
and live your life in such a way, if you love that person, where you can satisfy your needs but also your partner's needs, because that is what a beautiful union is. You come to
mm.
in one, so you can be individually
Yeah.
yourselves, if that makes any sense.
So, as an attractive woman, how do you deal with approaches? So, and from that, what can people learn from that? I'll give you a quick example because obviously we've been out to plenty of events, we work together, and we had at my conference in London, we were with your lady friend. Her name escapes me now, and the piss had come up. So, how do you deal with approaches of men, and what can people learn from that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I do have a certain look. Obviously I'm blonde, but besides just that, I really like to dress a certain way, and I like to be polished. So yes, there is a lot of attention, but again, it goes beyond just that. Like if somebody approaches me that I have no interest in talking, like how am I responding to that? Am I acting in a way
mm,
that's maybe provocative in that moment, or am I acting in such a
mm,
way where you're like, this is a business conversation? There, you just know there's a
mm.
point in that conversation that it can go either way. And
The
usually,
language.
exactly, usually the men are the ones that would propose that. So you just have to be ready. If this, if you are that kind of female that you get hit on a lot, then you might want to do a little homework and prepare yourself for such situations, instead of exploding in
Mm,
that moment and say, oh my god, he just hit on me, or or go into
yeah,
depressive mode, or be upset, or because there's so many different scenarios. Because in the end, it's all about you. Like, how, if I respect myself, I will make sure that the person sitting in front of me, they know that I respect
yeah,
myself. Therefore, they will respect me based on what I say. And
yeah.
you can turn it ugly or you can keep it nice. So it's about
Mm,
how you present yourself, and there's easy ways to do it. I am not interested in this conversation if it's going to go that way. But if you're interested in
mm,
talking about this specific business deal, then I'm up for it. But you make it known
yeah,
immediately. And then if they
yeah,
persist, like in the London case, then that's
yeah,
where, things can go a little ugly. And that's when you need like a few men around to protect you.
yeah. No, I mean, I think this is the other thing got to be so careful of is that I think with people will talk about the Me Too movement, right? And they go, well, I can't approach women, and obviously most people are on devices, so they're not used to it because they're used to online dating and stuff. And I know that women still would like a men to approach. But I think what guys have got to look at as well is misreading cues. There's a difference between being drunk and walking up behind a woman and go, right, love, do you go, I'll get you a drink, etc. And it can startle them because it triggers your safety, right? So there's many things to be aware of, and there's, I think it's fair to say that sometimes if the guy's good looking, he will get a nicer rejection to someone that they don't find necessarily attractive. That can play a role in it. But I think the important thing is understanding meta communication a bit more and choosing signals.
Mhm.
So if a guy approaches, it should be there as a signal there of some kind. But going up to people in the corner of a dark club and stuff like that to a lady, I think is probably a bad idea. And you
Yeah.
shouldn't expect a good result from that.
Yeah, but it's also, the way you find yourself. Because if I'm also at a club at 3 a.m., also drunk, and somebody else, hits on me when
Yeah,
I'm drunk, then it's a whole different perspective. I don't drink, by the way, but I'm just saying in a
yeah,
in a fictional scenario. So, women is almost like, I'm gonna have to maybe defend men a little bit here, but
yeah,
women do sometimes put themselves in a position where maybe their dress is on the way and they're really wasted, and then they want the attention, and then
mm,
a man comes in and they flirt with that, but then they get angry. So you really have to know
yeah,
your boundaries too, and you cannot expect men to be perfect, just like we are not perfect.
mm,
But just
yeah,
have respect for yourself, and by starting just at that point, then you can also
mm,
demand respect from other people, and they will know. Like, we all know, like, energies can be felt very strongly. If you give me that vibe, then
mm,
sometimes men match that vibe too. So it's not
yeah.
all men's fault all the time.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's all men's fault. I think with the problem that you will have there is if we perpetuate the information that the Me Too movement, but then really it's going to come down to you being more self-aware. If you are going to approach, cool, it's your life, but be aware of your possible levels of attraction. Do you think it's going to be complementary? Because at the end of the day, it's marketing. Everyone's looking to get the right result. Now, there's some people, maybe they're insecure. They think, well, I might not be able to date someone they find, attractive. They might feel that they're above their level, or whatever. I mean, that's by the by. But the point is being self-aware and making sure the lady's safe. And no means no. And I think after time it is, they do get a polite response, but they push it.
Mm.
And no means no. And I think that's when, because I've seen it dozens of times.
Yes, you
I've
have.
been in event nightlife for 30 years nearly, right? And I've seen it, you know, like I'm in the club and I'm DJing or whatever, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, I can see the guy coming across the room to the lady, and I'm thinking, mate, you got no fucking chance. Leave it alone. He's probably had a few beers and stuff, and he gets rejected, and he doesn't understand why. And that's what I mean by a bit of self awareness, because no, I don't know a single woman on this planet likes thirsty men.
Mm,
So it's
self-awareness.
having a
I
bit of
love
self control.
that. Yes.
Yeah. Why do you think nowadays people are obsessed with the power couple, and what does that represent to you, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I think, in the especially in the business world, you have Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi.
Mm,
When you said that, that's who first came to my mind. Because you see
mm,
two people that are obviously attracted to each other. They've been married for a while or been together, but they're both working towards the same goal. And that's a little
yeah.
bit rare. And I think this is why it's so showcased these days and so evident. And
Mm,
I think it's beautiful, but that's not to say that if you're not a power couple, it's not okay, because
mm,
it would be quite rare to find somebody that you're both alphas and you both work towards a single goal and you both make it work, because it's a little bit hard.
yeah.
Sometimes there has to be a little bit in relationship, a little bit of a, maybe, I don't know if difference is the right word, but you want to have that like male protection, and you want to have this, and
Mm,
in a power couple like that, it's almost feels like, and I don't know that to be true for sure, but it almost feels like, it's almost like two power people going head to head, but also towards the same direction. So I think, women aspire to be with somebody that can understand them more than anything. And when it comes to understanding and loving, and of course, if you love each other so much, you do want to go on the same road and the same path, and build something together. But it doesn't mean that one person cannot build a business and the other one taking care of the kids. You're still a power couple,
mm,
let's not get it confused. But I think what we see in the media today is like, oh, this power couple where you're both taking over, Grant Cardone and
yeah.
Elena Cardone, and where.
Or movie stars, you know, and people like that, you know, like, or probably the best example is Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Right.
I think a lot of
Yes.
people look at that as the power couple, don't they?
Yeah.
So modern dating, right? I know you're not in the game, I'm not in the game, but modern dating is obviously become tough on both sides
Mm-hmm.
today. Based on your friend group,
Mm-hmm.
as you're married, um, why do you think it's such a shit show out there?
Mm. I think it goes down to more than just dating. I think it's the quick wins, quick win.
Mm,
Everything is about how do I get this quickly, but then we also want for this quick win to have that feeling as if we worked for it for years, right? So if you are climbing Mount Everest, right, and you know how hard it is, and you sweat, and maybe you throw up, and maybe your legs hurt, but you get there and you have this amazing feeling of like, holy shit, I made it here, right? Or you take a helicopter, they drop you off there, you take in the view, but then you're missing all of that feeling, right? You're like, I did this too, and I'm bored now. So I think in the
mm,
in the modern dating, this is what I see, with the apps. And I have friends like, oh, I'm going, I'm meeting this guy for lunch and this guy for dinner. And then I have guy friends who are like, well, I can't find somebody that I can, connect with. It's all about the quick wins. You see somebody, they're attractive,
mm,
you immediately want to have sex. You don't want to like get
mm,
to know them and have that long, annoying sometimes process from the moment you met
mm,
this attractive chick to maybe 3 months from now when you're actually going to get to sleep with her. It's a long time and it's a lot of work. But in this
mm,
long work and this is where you connect and you get to learn. Maybe I don't even want to have sex with this person. They're horrible. The way they treat people, you
mm,
know what I mean? So instead of jumping so quickly, because then you lose all interest. There's no build up. There's no so that's what I see. It's just everything is too quick, everything is too commercial, everything is there, and nobody takes time to really get to know themselves. Because when you get to know yourself, then that's when you create boundaries. That is when maybe
mm.
even you as a man, you're going to maybe have to reject sexual intentions from your date, the female
Yeah,
too. It's not just men. Go ahead, you were going to say
yeah.
something.
No, 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 no. I'm not going to chat. But the answer is to your question, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah, I
finish that.
think so. Quick wins.
Quick wins. Yeah, I think also like you said, and the way that the apps also work and the way that they're tilted. I think if you look at something like what's the leading app? I'm trying to think of the name now. Tinder. If you look at something like Tinder, I think women swipe 4 or 3%, or maybe up to 5% of the time. Men will swipe 50-ish or a bit higher. And I think there are twice as many men on something like Tinder than there are women. And what's happening, it's within the top 20. So if from a guy's side, the top 20 men, women, 80% of the women are interested in the top 20% of men. And then the bottom half of the 80% of men are chasing the bottom half of women. So it's like a hierarchy on attractiveness. So unless you fit that remit, the dating apps are difficult. And from my understanding from some of the studies and stuff, it's a game system as well. So boosting for ads and stuff, I don't use them, so I'm just speaking broadly about them, some of the reports I've read. So there's a bit of a shit show there. And if everyone's got their faces in mobiles all the time, they're not communicating face to face. But yeah, I think it's just a bit of a shit show out there. And I'd like to see more guys winning alongside women.
I mean, it's easy for me to say, but I do think all apps should be deleted. All of these apps, and we should also take breaks. I took a break from Instagram for 6 months, even though I wanted to do it for like a month just to test it out, and it gave me so much clarity. So if somebody's, let's say, addicted in a way of making sure they get this dopamine of like, oh my god, these 5 women swiped on me, right? Like, take that, and how do I feel without that? What was the motivation? Was I just looking for validation? And actually go out there, take the time to learn about yourself.
This is true. Like, for some ladies, they'll be on there for self-esteem regulation. The fact that someone showed them some interest, doesn't matter who it is. It was like, not all, but some people will use them as that, is a form of attention, and it helps validate, oh, right, I still got it.
Yeah.
Men do still like me. Do you see what I mean? So then that could be
without being conscious. And I think that's where the problem lies, because, some women may think that, oh no, I'm actually looking for the one that I want to marry. Yet they go on a date with somebody.
You're going to find the one on a hookup app.
Right. But
like Tinder.
honestly, because you asked me what my friends think. So I'm telling you, this is what they think. They think, I mean, maybe they try the friends, or maybe they're busy and they go on an app and they're like, okay, I'm going to meet the one. Yet they go on a date, and on their way home, they're checking to see who else swiped on them. You see, they don't even give enough time for a person to actually be who they are. It's like, oh, I didn't like his shoes, so let me go to the next one. Like, what? Like, this is what I'm saying. So, it goes both ways. And, I'm not a man, so I don't know how men think, but I see my friends do it, and it's painful even to watch. It's like, just go to the gym and go have fun. Go get your hair done and enjoy life.
Excellent. Thank you for recording with me today. Is there any final words from you?
Always
have you got any questions for me?
Oh my god, then we need to record another episode, Danny, for all of that.
Should we do part 2, and you do part 2 and you ask me a lot of questions?
I'm always down to record anything with you, because every time you ask me, I know the conversation is going to be not only interesting, but very helpful for those who listen. And I know you amassed a really nice audience that are actually interested in learning more about the truths of life. And, I am honored to be part of this with you, Danny. So anytime you want, I will be here for you. And I love you so much. Excellent. And your whole family. And, I can't wait to see you again.
Excellent. I'll see you again soon. If people want to reach out on a business level, I'll say on a business level, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, I will give my new email, and that's Izabela, Izabela at ink of genius, inkofgenius.com. So that's my.
And is that your new publishing arm of the business?
That is, and it's a pleasure to share that with you here on your episode.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Lovely to chat. I'll be back here next week. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you again soon.